Saw this story over the weekend. Ariel Helwani, the reporter for MMAfighting.com, got escorted out of an event, and I think he was banned for life because he broke the story about Brock Lesnar coming back to UFC. So Paulie said, let's reach out to Ariel and give him a chance to talk about what happened, and he joins us now. So where were you Saturday night, Ariel?
Well, Dan, again, thank you so much for having me on the show, and I really appreciate your support and Paul's support as well. So I was at the Fabulous Forum in Inglewood, California. I was there to cover UFC 199 when all of this happened.
Okay, and you reported Brock Lesnar is coming back to UFC, coming out of retirement.
Yeah, at around 4:30 p.m. Pacific time, I reported that Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz were close to finalizing their fight at UFC 202. Now, this was a little different because usually when I'm reporting news, I'm usually, at home or in a hotel room or anything, something like that. But this time I was in the media room. But as you know, news doesn't stop for any occasion. When there's news, when you can confirm something, you report it. So that was at around 4:30 p.m. Pacific time. And in fact, a PR person came up to me and told me that I had jumped the gun with that story. And I said that I was, pretty confident that it was right. And in fact, a couple hours later, they confirmed that it was true. At around 5 p.m. Pacific time, I reported that Brock Lesnar was close to finalizing a deal to fight at UFC 200. And this was a much bigger story because it came out of the blue. No one suspected this because he's under contract with WWE. And this sort of, blew up into a big thing, and a lot of people thought I was wrong. For the record, I'm still batting 1,000. I've never been wrong with anything as far as what I've reported. At around 11 or so, right before the main event, a PR person came up to me and said that Dana White wanted to speak to me backstage, and I told him that the main event was coming up and I wanted to watch it. I have to, cover it, so maybe we can talk afterwards. I had been told that he was a little upset that this Brock Lesnar news got out. A couple of minutes later, another PR person came and said, you need to come to the back to speak to Dana. I said I'd like to bring someone with me. I brought my videographer, Casey Leiden, with me, and Dana was standing in the back there and said, get out of here. You're done. You're not welcome here. He said, go to Bellator, go cover Bellator, which is the number 2 promotion in the United States. He said that you're too negative. He said that Lorenzo Fertitta is not a fan of yours, and he made the call to kick you out, and you're not welcome here ever again. And I tried to explain to him that I was not doing anything negative, that I was doing the same thing that every sports journalist does. I got something confirmed, and I reported it. A PR person told me that I should have had the professional courtesy to run that by them. But there's nowhere in the rule book that says that I have to do that, as long as it's confirmed by multiple sources and good sources. And I was right. I don't have to ask them, because in the past when I've asked them things, they've told me not to do it, or they said it's not true. In fact, ESPN asked him about this story on Friday night, and he said it wasn't true. So the same thing would have happened. And so I thanked him for everything he's done, and I said I hope that you'll reconsider. They took my credential away, and they escorted us out of the building. That's the general gist of what happened.
Physically escorted you out of the building?
Well, no one touched me, but they took us to the back. We gathered our things, and they watched us very closely. I wasn't going to do anything. I have no regrets. I would report the same thing all over again, but no one actually physically took me out. But they walked us out and waited for us to leave the parking lot and all that. Someone was there the entire time from the UFC.
How upset was Dana White?
He was pretty upset. I've seen him upset before. He was very red. The funny thing is that I've always had a very good relationship for the most part with Dana White. It's maybe been a little rockier these days, and maybe I'm just dreaming here, but I felt like deep down inside he didn't really want to do this. As you know, PR people and the organization and media, they're not always going to see eye to eye, because I'm reporting stuff perhaps before they want it out, and they want to put it out there in a certain way. They had a promo and all that stuff. So I know that he was a little bit upset. I don't know if he wanted to go to this length. I don't know if he wanted to ban me necessarily. And again, maybe that's me just dreaming, but he did say on multiple times that this was Lorenzo's decision, that Lorenzo was not a fan of mine, and that again, I'm too negative, and that he hates me, and that I'm done. And he said, you're finished. You're not going to cover this organization ever again.
But what happened prior to this, Ariel? You didn't do anything that was negative. You ruined their party. You broke the news before they could announce this on their own. But how is that negative? And were there any other incidents that led up to this? Because look, let's not kid anybody. Fox dropped you, and why would they drop you as the MMA Journalist of the Year unless they were getting pressure from UFC and Dana White?
Oh yeah, well, Fox dropped me because the UFC told them to. That's 100% fact. So, look, for a long time, I was working for Fox for around 4.5 years, and I have another job for MMAfighting.com, which is owned by Vox Media. And when I was doing stuff for Fox, it was all UFC. When I'm doing stuff for MMA Fighting, I'm talking about the other organizations. I'm talking about Bellator. I'm talking about free agency. This sport is evolving very quickly, and there's a lot of new things happening. I think we spoke about that, the last time I was on. And so I was being told over the last few months or so that they were getting increasingly annoyed that I was, I guess, out-scooping them. But again, I feel almost awkward and embarrassed about all of this because I'm not doing some great investigative journalism here. I'm not going to win a Pulitzer for any of this type of work. I'm just reporting fights. And if that's negative, then what are we all doing here?
Why are they so thin-skinned, though? They don't want to be covered by traditional media?
Well, this is and this is not an isolated incident. Other journalists have unfortunately had to deal with this. I don't think it was anything on this sort of level when it was just like reporting a fight and you're out. I'm not naive, as you alluded to. I know that this has been brewing for quite some time. But again, I highly disagree, and it's funny. A lot of people, including the Deadspins of the world, used to call me a shill and just like a puff piece reporter. And now all of a sudden, I'm this this martyr for journalism. All I was doing was reporting fights. And if you can't do that, then I don't know really what they want. There's that famous quote. News is what someone wants to be suppressed. Everything else is just advertising. And I think that they just want advertising at this point. They just want people to report. Like Brock Lesnar was just on with Hannah Storm, and he announced his opponent, and they just want people to go off that. They don't want anyone to try to dig deep. And where I come from, I graduated from Newhouse. They tell you to go out there and find the news. And especially when the news is coming, you're not doing your job if you're not reporting it. And that's what I was doing on Saturday, and I wouldn't do it any differently.
Do you want us to apply for a credential for the next fight? You can be the Dan Patrick MMA correspondent. I appreciate that, and you probably know this, but it's important for me to say, for people like you to even give me the time of day going through something like this is very important because this stuff doesn't happen necessarily in other sports, and this is, I think, at this point, a little bit bigger than me. It's time that the mainstream media knows that this stuff happens in mixed martial arts, and in particularly in the UFC. I was with my two colleagues who are the best at what they do, Casey Leiden and Esther Lin, photojournalists, video journalists. They had nothing to do with this, and they were kicked out as well. Why? What did they? That to me is not right. And I know that getting a credential is a privilege, as they put it, but it's 2016 and the sport has come a long way, and if this can happen to me, then I'm pretty sure that it can happen to any other journalist trying to cover the sport as well, and that's really what I think is important here. So while I appreciate that gesture, I have a feeling that at this point, and hopefully I'm wrong, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, at this point they'd probably deny that even if it's you. Ariel, thanks for joining us. Thanks for keeping us up to date as well. We appreciate it.
Thank you for everything, Dan. I really appreciate it.
Ariel Helwani, MMAfighting.com.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.